Hiya guys, it's Don from Kilobits here, and I've been looking at the indie game Stasis, and I've actually got the developer on the line. So, hello Chris, how are you doing?
Hey, Dom, how's it going?
It's good, it's good. So, obviously we're here to talk about your game Stasis that's coming out. It's actually looking really, really good. So what's it actually all about? Can you tell us about the story, or is it kind of top secret?
Well, and I'm not sort of give away too much about the story, but essentially the game is kind of in the same vein as the old school adventure games, Monkey Island and The Dig and stuff. It's kind of like an alternate take on a darker version of those games, with the story very much inspired by Alien and Aliens and Event Horizon and those sort of science fiction movies. Obviously, I can't really get too much into the story. Being an adventure game, kind of 2/3 of the game is the story. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think is a different take on an existing genre.
Yeah, I mean, it is looking very, very interesting. What were your influences? Was it so when I first looked at it, I instantly thought of Dead Space and BioShock. Literally, that was the first two things that came into my head. So did they kind of influence you in that kind of way?
Oh, definitely. Dead Space, it's actually quite interesting. When I first heard about Dead Space, I actually saw a friend of mine playing it, and I'd actually never heard of anything about it. Now, I actually thought it was somebody had actually gone and made an Aliens game, and I was just kind of blown away by it. And even BioShock as well. I actually sat there playing the demo of BioShock, and I didn't actually want to go further in it because I was actually too scared, sitting in my house alone with my headphones on, kind of terrified to actually go forward. So those games definitely had a massive influence on it, to the point where even when I was kind of trying to work out the story and the level design and everything, I actually went and I bought a whole lot of the Dead Space and BioShock game guides. And I kind of looked through them to actually get ideas for the story and the pacing and that. So I'd actually say that out of the current generation of games, the two games that have influenced it most have been the very first Dead Space and the very first BioShock.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very obvious. It's very that you took inspiration from those. But why did you choose the whole adventure kind of genre? Was there anything that really kind of set you up for that, or were you just?
The thing is that kind of because I knew that I wanted to do something kind of on my own, and in order to do a first-person shooter by yourself or these bigger role-playing games or something, they're just very, very big games to actually try to manage as one person. You get these people that are trying to do massive multiplayer role-playing games and stuff by themselves, and it's just, if you look at how complicated those games actually are, it's quite insane. Whereas if you look at an adventure game, essentially it's a gameplay mechanic that's kind of been around for the last I don't know when Manic Mansion came out, but it's been on for a very long time, and the actual gameplay mechanics of it are quite simple in the way they're actually put together, and it's very easy to actually kind of plan a very linear game like that. So just from the point of view of being able to do something on my own, the adventure game genre just kind of fit perfectly. Also I just love adventure games. That's kind of a big thing. I grew up on them and I just absolutely love them. So to try to create my own just seemed like a natural step forward.
Yeah. So what are your favorite adventure games that kind of really inspired you to do it?
The Dig is definitely one of them. In fact, the fact that Disney's now been bought Lucasfilm, I'm kind of holding out hope for either something around The Dig, an unofficial sequel, or a movie or TV series or something. I know it'll never actually happen, but the nerd in me gets very excited just thinking about it.
You can always hold out hope. You can always drop them an email or something.
Maybe one day when I get rich and famous,
Maybe. But I'm really happy that you've kind of done this all yourself. You've done a really, really good job.
Thank you very much. It's a little bit of stupidity coming on my side, because I know that I could get other people in to actually help, and I actually get emails quite often of people that send me their portfolios and stuff, and it's quite humbling to actually be in that position. But the truth is that I want to sort of figure out how everything is put together. So I was going to actually outsource the music originally, and then I went to a computer store and I found FL Studio, and I thought, well, let me kind of give it a bash myself. And I went and I bought out a keyboard and I kind of did all the music myself. And then I sort of thought, well, if I can do the music myself, maybe I can do the sound design by myself. So I went out and I bought a recorder and I kind of started recording all my own sounds and editing them together. And it's just kind of been an organic process of kind of figuring out how everything works. And the fantastic thing about it is that because it's just me working on the project, I can't really get bored with one aspect, because let's say I spend 2 weeks doing graphics for a certain area and I get bored of it, then I can suddenly jump to doing the music, and then when I'm sort of finished that day, I can jump to do the sound design, or I can jump to start writing dialogue or something like that. So it's been a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you do it, really. I would have just probably given up by now, but you're very, very 3
years of lack of sleep.
Yeah. Can I ask what game engine you use?
I'm not a programmer at all. I'm an artist, so finding an art-friendly engine was very, very important to me. The nice thing about adventure games is there's quite a few sort of dedicated adventure game engines out there. I looked at AGS, which of course has been, Yahtzee uses it, and it was used in a whole lot of kind of recent retro-ish adventure games. But eventually I settled on an adventure game called Visionaire, which is the same engine that the guys from Daedalic use, and they created the Whispered World and the Deponia series and everything with it. So it's a 2D adventure game engine. It's specifically created for adventure games, which as a non-programmer was an absolute godsend for me, because I could actually kind of I didn't have to really stress about the kind of inner workings of an engine. And honestly, it took me about 2 days before I had a playable room put up together, and I had a basic understanding of of how the engine actually works. So if you have a chance, go to visionairestudio.net and take a look at the engine. And it's also really cheap as well. It's only 35 euros for a copy of the engine. So, it's just easy to use. It's just for a non-programmer like me. It's just easy to use. It's a fantastic engine.
That's cool. Could you tell us a bit more about the main character? Is there anything that you can kind of say without giving too much away?
Well, sort of when I first looked at the game, what I really wanted to do, I'm an architectural artist, so I wanted to kind of have have an environment that almost existed as a character in and of itself, so that I could kind of put as many stories into it. So when I first started the game, I actually started sketching out the environment. And the original idea for the character was he was going to be a salvage captain that actually comes across this massive, big derelict craft. But kind of as I realized that I'm really not that much, I'm not that good of a game designer yet at the time, or that was just it was just too big for me to actually sort of work. So actually, going back to Dead Space and BioShock and seeing how they create they actually put their protagonists into the situation, I kind of came up with this idea of a character that's kind of stuck in this environment and trying to find his family. So I suppose from the point of view, it's trying to create somebody that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
So he starts off as very much just an avatar that anybody can kind of put their own personality into. But as I've developed the game, it's quite interesting. I've actually kind of developed his personality throughout the game as being a very, very kind of family-orientated individual, somebody who literally would kind of do anything. With, of course, the main thrust of it being that it's sort of an ordinary person in an extraordinary situation. If you and I were in a situation where we had to, where our family was in danger, and we had to try to find them, what would we do? And interestingly, if I'm ever trying to figure out a puzzle, trying to figure out kind of a cruel, horrible thing to put this poor guy through, I just kind of put myself into that point of view, sort of, how far would I go to actually save my family? And the name is a kind of very, very obscure reference to a character in Aliens, where Bishop actually goes and pulls out a clipboard and he says, Maracheck, John J, they died taking it off of him. And I thought that was just a kind of a cool name, so I just kind of stuck with it.
That's cool. You really kind of did set an atmosphere with the game, just from watching the gameplay footage, and that's quite rare nowadays, I find. So you've really done that well, and you've converted me into the whole indie genre now. So well done. You've actually got a new fan. So do you have
my job is done then?
Your job is well done. You did it very, very well. So do you have a aim for when it's going to come out, or do you have a set release date? I've got an internal release date that I have set. I don't want to kind of give any dates, because I don't want to be one of those people that's sort of it's coming on the 12th of October and it never actually arrives. But it will be sooner than later. I am sort of aiming for this year. As it sits now with the game, it's currently about 70% complete. And the thing is that sort of as I go through it, I kind of
add in a few things and take out a few things in other places. But I mean, without sort of setting a firm release date, it's the current plan and the way that's actually going, it will be this year. More than likely towards the end of the year, though.
Yay.
But yeah, I can't let it go on forever, because I've got too many ideas for other games. So I've been doing this for 3 years now, or 2.5 years. It's going to get to the point where I'm just sort of like, I get sick and tired of it. That hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to happen for a while. But I hate for it to get to that point where I just kind of want to get it out the door and get it finished. I've enjoyed it too much up until now to let that happen.
Yeah. So have you got anything like planned for the future, or are you sticking
lots of stuff. Well, sort of, the eventual idea with Stasis, that if it does do well, which I'm really, really hoping it does, is to actually go into sort of game development full time. And create sort of more games along this line, kind of the isometric, really, really high detailed environment. In fact, I actually did a test, which you can see on the YouTube channel, called 1,000 Years Later, which was essentially kind of my take on what I would have hoped Fallout would actually look like.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote the entire story, and it's kind of it's set in a post-apocalyptic world, but where you are a bounty hunter who's trying to hunt down a serial killer. And it was this entire kind of, I wrote the design document, it's this entire living, breathing world where, if you hunt him down through a certain town, then certain events will trigger off other events that actually happen in the game. I mean, I've got also ideas for a kind of a noir detective Blade Runner-esque sort of game, also with like a high detailed isometric. Cool. There's so many things. I sit with my brother every day. We have a cup of coffee, and honestly, we come out with 10 different game ideas that I think will just make fantastically awesome games. I'm watching a lot of Futurama lately, and I think that kind of an isometric, high detailed adventure game set in a Futurama Galaxy Quest-like universe would just be fantastic. And I see to get Stasis done. That's kind of like my big focus. It's just sort of not to get too sidetracked by other games.
Yeah.
Another idea.
What kind of made you go into like game design and creating your own game? Was it just like a random thing that you decided you wanted to do, or was it something you wanted to do from when you were little? Or
I've always sort of had an interest in game design and creating games. Originally, I actually wanted to go into film. I still do actually want to go into film. I mean, my big thing is sort of be one of the Neil Blomkamp and be the next big Hollywood film director. But my ideas are always kind of outstripped by my budget. And the thing is that like with computer games, you can create a very, very large and detailed, rich world with a very, very small amount of people actually putting into it. I mean, there's some guys out there that have created the most incredible graphic novels, and it's literally just them, and a piece of paper and a scanner and a pencil, and they've done these, mind-blowing things that kind of put Star Wars to shame. And sort of, so I've always, at the core of it, I suppose, I've always just wanted to kind of tell stories. And originally, I thought that the best way to tell stories was going to be in kind of film. I just realized that kind of, the way to go is actually computer games. My brother and I, we've always kind of been together in terms of making games and stuff. I was involved I used to use a multimedia fusion and click and play back in the day, the non-programmer side of me. I mean, I've created worked on a game for my brother for also quite a long time called Alien Me, which is sort of a take on Star Control 2, which is also one of my absolute favorite games. So I've always kind of had the game making bug inside me. But this is my first proper real attempt at an actual completed large game. And in fact, it started off as like I was bored in December and tried to do something, and it's kind of grown to this huge monster in front of me. It's quite an experience.
You honestly are doing so well. I'm literally hero. You're a hero. So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What kind of platforms are you aiming to put Stasis on? Is it just going to be on like one, so like PC, or are you going to try and get it on quite a few?
Currently, as far as the engine port goes, it's focused on PC, and they do a Mac export. But I'm sure if I talk to the guys that are developing the engine, I mean, they're very nice guys and they're very open to suggestions. So I mean, a Linux kind of port would be fantastic. I've actually designed the game that it can work on an iPad. I don't know if the engine will actually support the iPad use, but it definitely is something that I'd love to actually look at in the future.
Well, I'm glad you said that there's a Mac port, because I've got a Mac and I want to play it.
Yes, no, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, the company Daedalic, whatever they use the engine, so whatever platform they've actually ported to, I can actually port my game to. So yeah, that's kind of like a good kind of rule of thumb of seeing what Stasis will actually come out of. Obviously, the more platforms for me, the better it'll actually be. So yeah, as many as possible.
Have you come across like any problems when you were trying to design the game and stuff that could have like halted the whole process or?
So the biggest essentially for the first year I basically spent learning, and actually I had an entire Stasis was an entire different game a year in the first year, and I actually threw out a whole lot of it in terms of the story and stuff, just because kind of when you first start you think you can do certain things with the story that you realize are actually really difficult. So, one of the things is constantly giving the player a motivation to go forward. If you watch a movie, like let's say you watch, I don't know, Event Horizon, the first half of Event Horizon would actually make a really, really boring computer game. The second half would be quite a bit more exciting. Even like an Alien, the first half of Alien would be a boring as hell computer game. You'd be doing nothing. You'd be walking around kind of, looking at computer screens. I mean, I was kind of treating the story from the same point of view as if I was going to do a movie, how would it actually happen? And then I went back and I looked at other games and saw how they kind of motivate the character to go forward. So that was a major, major learning curve for me in realizing that computer games aren't movies and movies aren't computer games. And I can do things in a game that can't be done in a movie, and a movie can do things that can't be done in a game. Otherwise, the biggest thing is just sort of motivation. It's just, every single day getting home from a 10 or a 12-hour day and turning on my computer and working on Stasis for 3 hours, on a weekend when I want to kind of go to bed, turn on my computer and work on it for a Saturday or something. But I think that's one of the reasons why I actually set up the forum, and why it's not the forum, the blog, and why I actually started to become active on other forums is because like creating something in a vacuum is very, very difficult. I could be doing something that nobody actually liked, and at the end of the day, 3 years later, releasing it, people go, well, that looks like shit, that's horrible. Who would actually want so I mean, motivation is a very, very big kind of hurdle to actually get over as a developer. And that's something that's kind of posting my ideas on the blog and talking to people and emailing people and posting on forums and everything has kind of gotten me over that hurdle.
Yeah. Do you have any like advice for other developers or like people studying game design like me, or just anything that you kind of want to say to them or to watch out for or anything?
Well, yeah, actually, I mean, I don't have any kind of formal training as a game designer. I'm an artist first year, and like I said, what I wanted to do was kind of create a game where the environment was a character, because I'm an architectural artist, so I'm used to creating environments. So I definitely say kind of play to your strengths. Just because there's World of Warcraft out there, if that stuff doesn't actually interest you, don't do it, because you have to love what you're actually doing. You're going to be spending the next few years of your life doing this. Hopefully not as long as I've been spending doing it, but you're going to be spending a massive deal of fun. So if you don't enjoy fantasy, don't just do fantasy games because they're kind of the in thing to actually do. If you really want to do a real-time strategy game, do that. Focus on that. Do the things that you really want to do. Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to actually finish.
Yeah.
And a finished product is a finished good product is worth a million times more than an unfinished really awesome idea that you may have had. So yeah.
That's really cool. So, can I ask, your concept art and like the work that you did to like pre-production and stuff, what kind of artist influences did you take from that, or was it just all your own stuff? Was it your own stuff going out? And
it really is a bit of everything. I'd say that my major influences generally do come from movies. So sort of Event Horizon and stuff. In fact, the very, very first test that I did for Stasis was actually, there's this one cool part in Event Horizon where they're all sitting around and there's all these kind of like stasis pods that are sitting in a semicircle around them. And I just wanted to try to recreate a scene similar to that. So I fired a 3D studio and I started to kind of model a few things. And then I went to kind of other movies, and I've actually got a directory on my computer full of just screenshots from movies. Sunshine is a beautiful movie, and some of the actual set designs in that movie are absolutely incredible. I just tried to kind of like recreate those. So there's no real kind of specific artist that I've actually followed. It's more just been just the types of movies and things that have really inspired me. I've got a massive library of those arts of movie books, and I've got everything from Mars Needs Moms all the way through to I just got the new the Art of Dead Space in Prometheus the other day. So I've kind of like flicked through, and I've got little dog-eared corners and sketches that I've shoved inside there and that sort of thing. So yeah, really it's everything. It's everything from the original kind of Fallout games and those screenshots all the way through to sort of, Prometheus, which is a shitty movie, but it's honestly one of those beautiful movies I've ever seen. The actual story was horrible, but the movie, is incredible. In fact, in some of the behind-the-scenes stuff I'm going to be emailing through to you guys, you can actually hear me watching, I think it's Prometheus or Sunshine in the background. So kind of while I work, I actually have the movies playing and I listen to them and I watch them over and over and over again, and I just sort of like sink into it as I do the work. So it's really an amalgamation of kind of everything. Giga's obviously he's kind of my absolute pinnacle favorite artist, but his stuff has actually not been as influential on Stasis as I thought that it would be when I first started. Because his stuff is obviously very, biomechanical and organic and stuff, and Stasis is very kind of hard-edged, sort of has a hardish feel to it.
Okay, so to kind of wrap all this up, do you want to kind of say anything to the viewers or anything? Any advice or?
Don't scratch it if it's itching. No, the only advice that I'd really give is please buy Stasis when it comes out. The website is at stasisgame.com. I do have a blog that I do update quite often, and there is a mailing list on the website that you can actually sign up to, where you'll get sort of the latest news, any new videos that actually get uploaded. And also I've got a YouTube channel, which is YouTube.com/StasisGame. And I'm also on Twitter as well, if you just search for Stasis Game on Twitter. I don't probably update as much as I should, but any kind of major updates and new blog posts and random ideas that jump into my head, then generally those are the places that you'll actually find them. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you for talking to me anyway.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and like I said, it's been quite strange to actually talk about it out loud to people, because I've kind of type a lot and do the blog stuff, but my mouth is sort of dry because I'm getting excited and waving my hands around as I start to kind of run about it.
Well, you can talk to me about it any day. I'll happily sit here and listen to you talk about it.
Randomly throw out some questions at me, what did I have for lunch today? Well,
what did you have for lunch today?
I actually
What's your
went out for
favourite
lunch.
colour?
And I had a cup of coffee. So,
Ooh.
yeah, my daily routine.
I'm not much of a coffee fan, but if you are, then that's fine.
I'm actually more shocked that you're not a coffee fan than I am that you haven't seen
more of a tea and two
yeah.
sugars with milk fan.
That must be the British thing. South Africans, we like our coffee.
Oh, okay then. Well, yeah, it's probably more of a British thing then. So yeah, thank you for talking to me. It's been really nice.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to sort of seeing this all put together, and I look forward to hopefully you telling me how awesome Stasis is when it eventually comes out.
Oh, I'm sure I will. Okay guys, so remember, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to us, which you should do anyway, or you should have been. You can like us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/thekilobits, and we're on Twitter, and it's @thekilobits.